In a world that is full of constant rot, it is wonderful to finally learn about a win, even a small win. Ever since I learned about the dam removals on the Klamath River about 15 months ago, I have been hoping to come here and see it for myself. We get to see the river from its beginning in Klamath Falls, Oregon, to the mouth in Renewal, California, and best of all, we get to learn from the people who have called this river home since time immemorial. This stunning place is the majestic mouth of the Klamath River. Some of these waters have been traveling over 500 kilometers from tiny tributaries in Oregon to be here in Yurok lands and flow out to the Pacific Ocean. Along the way, countless other small and large rivers have also dumped their waters into the Klamath. The river officially begins in Klamath Falls, Oregon, so let's first head upriver and see some of these far-flung places. Our experience in the Klamath River Basin begins near Mount Shasta. When fires are not ravaging the forests of Northern California, you start seeing the snowy summits of Mount Shasta from far in the distance. All modern-day travelers along Interstate 5 have it in focus, whether traveling north or south. Long before Spanish, Russian, and eventually Anglo settlers arrived in Northern California, the original peoples of this land used Mount Shasta as a beacon, and it played an essential role in their lives and origin stories. It also marks a special place in the state's watersheds, because anything to its south flows down through the Sacramento River and out to the ocean via the San Francisco Bay. If you are headed north like we are, the Black Butte Pass marks the change into the Klamath River Basin, which extends well into Oregon. Every little creek and river will eventually flow to the Klamath, through the ancestral lands of many native peoples and out to the Pacific at Renewal, where the shot of the mouth was taken. After we put Mount Shasta in the rearview mirror, we cross the Oregon border and drive through the ultra-thirsty agricultural lands of the Klamath Basin. These have sucked the former wetlands of the area dry and pulled water from the rivers through many dams and irrigation projects. When we finally meet up with the Klamath River, it is just south of Klamath Falls as we make our way into the city. Here at the end of the Link River, which of course links the upper Klamath Lake to Lake Iwana, the official beginning of the Klamath River is dockside right next to where the highway crosses. The levels of this lake are kept constant because of the Keno Dam, which is just downstream southwest of town. After the removal of 4 100-plus-year-old dams, the Iron Gate, Copco 1 and 2, and John C. Boyle dams, the Keno Dam is now the closest to the ocean. Along with the Link River diversion, just upstream from where we are now, these are the last 2 remaining dams inhibiting multiple species of salmon from reaching the spawning grounds they used before these concrete structures were built. Let's head down to Keno now and get a closer look at the very last place where Klamath waters are held back by human means. As Oregon Route 66 crosses the Klamath River, about an 18-kilometer drive from the beginning that we just visited, it is heartwarming to know almost everything from this point on is free-flowing. Just around the bend downstream from town, the The Keno Dam is the final hurdle between the ocean and Klamath Falls. Somewhat amazingly, Chinook salmon have already been found in nearby Spencer Creek, which is just downstream of the Keno Dam, but past all 4 of the other removed dams. For these fish to find their way back to ancestral spawning grounds after being blocked for over 100 years is an unbelievable accomplishment. Hopefully, it is just a sign of the renewal of this river's health in the coming years. From Keno, it is a simple drive further west through the pines to the site of the former John C. Boyle Dam. At this point in the trip, I am thoroughly giddy with anticipation about seeing one of these places in the beginning stages of renewal. The highway once again crosses the Klamath River, which looked very different right on this spot just over a year ago. This was the site of the John C. Boyle Reservoir, which was created by the dam. It is here on the banks of the Klamath River, in spots that were submerged for over 100 years, that indigenous nations, led by their youth, are sowing the seeds of native plants to regenerate this landscape into what it once was. The combined removal of these 4 dams is the largest in United States history, and this was always bound to leave a lot of work in its aftermath. Indigenous youth are speeding up this recovery process and creating a more sustainable future for the Klamath Basin by replanting species that are native to the riverbanks. Tens of thousands of white oak acorns have been planted, as well as a combination of grasses, herbs, and flowering plants. Soon, a trip down the Klamath will be full of views of milkweed, poppies, tall grasses, lupines, sunflowers, and fescues. These formerly submerged banks are now free, mostly thanks to all the native peoples who have called this river home since time immemorial. Their decades of resistance are worth learning from and aspiring to. When I am at my lowest lows in terms of what is happening in the world and this country, both nationally and locally, hundreds of years of indigenous resistance is possibly the only thing that can inspire me to think a better future is possible. When we do eventually make our way to the Pacific Ocean at the mouth of the Klamath, it feels just a little more special. A little bit sweeter, maybe. Having been to the beginning of the river, and having seen some of the renewal taking place far upstream, we already had a better understanding of this special place. Before heading into the town of Klamath, where the Yurok Country Visitors Center offers guided tours in traditional redwood dugout canoes, we cross the river one more time and check out the remains of the old bridge. This was washed out in the winter of 1964 when warm, torrential rains melted mountain snows and caused havoc in all of the river valleys. Back across the river, Klamath Town is the center of the Yurok Tribe's administrative functions and the Visitors Center. Even if you do not have a tour reservation, the building is a great source of information and a place to buy gifts. You can read about their history and find out more about the dam removals which they had a large role in. After checking in, we follow our guides who tow the canoes behind them to a point not too far upriver. This will be our launch site and the beginning of the tour. Before setting out, our guides tell us a little history of the canoes, which they call yacht in their language, or the more descriptive,
yacht, just means boat of the people. And these are living spiritual beings just like you and I. One way we show that we give it the necessary body parts for it to live.
Those body parts include a nose in the front, but since no one likes being pulled by the nose, we are instructed that this part of the canoe is not to be handled or tied. The lungs and the heart are carved in the front as well, while the kidneys are in the back, where the paddler rests their feet. Thank you so much to our guide Tyrone, who almost never stopped talking for the entire 2 hours we are in the boat. And while that might sound like a negative to some, he shared so much cultural wisdom that all 4 of us would have honestly been content to float around the rest of the day listening to him. I am going to intersperse some audio of him that I caught along the way, but please accept my apologies as it was just into a phone mic.
So to get us started a little bit, we like to say, I'll talk about a little bit of our history with these canoes, these off-yachts. Redwoods don't really decompose into soil, and so they can't make their own redwood forests. If it falls and stays in, one giant log, we would say it wanted to be a redwood canoe. If it fell and splintered into a bunch of pieces, a bunch of big, blocks basically, we'd say it wanted to be planks for our redwood houses, or the sheekway you're sitting on. Sheekway is our word for chair or stool.
As opposed to the logging companies whose trucks you will see plying the 101 with stacks of cut redwoods, Yurok people never cut down a healthy tree. Their canoes are only made from suitable pieces that can be salvaged from fallen trees. A living tree is like a relative and could never be sacrificed to make the canoe or boards to make a house.
The willow on this river, I believe that's at least most of the ones that exist in the world. It's holding in the banks, it's preventing erosion. And they are a native tree. They're very important to our ecosystem and to our culture. This off-yacht is about 21 feet, and they're known to get as big and bigger. It'll take a whole family, including we're multi-generational. We have pretty long lives because we're very healthy. And so it'll take a whole family about 2 to 4 years. Now you could probably carve one in about 4 months, if you really, really wanted to. But, redwood's a pretty soft wood, and these canoes are pretty sacred.
When taken care of properly, these can last over 100 years. When settlers arrived in the area now known as Northern California, they described this river as the Redwood Canoe Highway and spoke of hundreds of canoes headed in both directions. The majority of the tribe's canoes were actually lost during that flood back in 1964, and since then knowledge about these traditions also took a hit. But in recent years, some tribal members have been trying to reverse this trend. Bye.